so for our card today, we're going to start with the Rose and Rue collaboration with Maker Forte called Take Care Teddy Bear. And I have the little hanging bear and the little bear with the sign. And I am going to stamp that using my Misty with Color Hive Eclipse Black ink. And I'm using my little smusher tool there from Maker Forte. And I'm going to stamp it one more time, not quite as dark as I would like. And try not to overstamp it like I've already done like 4 times, and it has been cut out, of course, because, you know, this is how I do my videos, as you all know. All right, so we've got our little stamped image here, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that out of my Misty. Okay, I've got another piece of paper, and this time we are going to stamp the little honey drip from the same stamp set, and I'm lining this up so it's at the very top of my paper at the very edge, because I'm going to try and do this in a line, and of course, you know, because I'm not paying attention, stamp went in upside down. So we're going to try and do this kind of in a line so we can color it and fussy cut it. So I'm going to stamp this again with the Eclipse Black ink. And then I'm actually going to pick my paper up and slide it over. I'm going to just kind of tap that down so I can see it's going to stamp onto my sticky mat there. So I can kind of see about where I want to line this up on the other side, just to continue that honey drip all the way across. So we're going to ink and stamp again. I'm just kind of looking before I actually set that down. We'll smush it. And there's our honey drip. Okay, so now I've got my Maker Forte's Maker's Mat, and these are just some disposable paper mats. They're really heavy, but it's great because you can color on these with your alcohol markers, and you don't have to put another piece of cardstock underneath. So I've got my Altenew markers, and I realize you can't see that super well in the video, so I will put in the description which colors I used. But I'm going to go ahead and color my bears, and I'm not going to make you watch me do this because I'm not super good at it and I'm slow. So we'll move on. Okay, so now that they are colored in, I am going to go ahead and cut out my hanging bear. I'm going to leave my other bear for right now because I still need to color in his sign and stamp a sentiment. Okay, so I'm going to color in the little sign that the bear is holding, and I've got just kind of a really light gray, kind of a warm gray that I'm going to color that in with, just so that it's not so stark white on the front of my card when I get this put down. So I'm going to go ahead and color him in, and then I'm going to stamp my sentiment from the Splat Bear set that is also the Maker Forte Rose and Rue stamp set, and the one I'm going to use says, "I miss you very much." So I'm going to get that and just put it on an acrylic block, and I'm going to stamp that again with my Color Hive Eclipse Black, and just stamp that on his little sign. And then I will fussy cut him out. Okay, so now I'm just going to color in my honey drips and then fussy cut these out as well. so for our card base, we're going to start with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of Eclipse Black Maker Forte cardstock. We're going to cut this down to 10.5 by 5.5. And this is going to be how we make our box card base. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard, and I use mine sideways because that's the only way I can get a straight line. So if you're wondering what's going on, that's what it is. We're going to score this at 3.5 inches, 6.5 inches, 7 inches, and 10 inches. Okay. So once I have that scored, I'm going to go ahead and move my scoreboard. And we're going to go ahead and fold and burnish on those score lines. And typically when you score, you want to fold towards the bumpy side of the score line in most cases so that your paper does not crack. Didn't have an issue with this Maker Forte, but it can be an issue. So when you assemble this, you're going to fold the 2 little 1/2 inch score lines to the same direction. So you're going to have this little box, right? So I've got it folded to make sure when I go to cut my circle in that my 1/2 inch tab is on my left hand side so that my circle is going to be in the right place. So I'm going to go ahead and mat that specific panel before I cut the circle. So I'm matting this with a piece that is 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to have an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around that cute little honeycomb paper from the Rose and Rue Maker Forte paper pack, which I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I just had it here and I don't know what I've done with it. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and glue that down while I look for my paper pack. There it is. And this is called Honeybees and Bears. And there are 12 double-sided sheets in there, and they're absolutely adorable. So I've got a 2.5 inch circle die, and I'm going to center that about 1/2 inch or so from the top of the card. And I'm just going to center it on the panel and tape it down to make sure it doesn't move. And I'm going to go ahead and run this through my Sizzix switch to cut this out. And I'm using the smaller plates because I can leave that back end hanging off and it's not going to hurt anything. So I'm going to go ahead and run that through my switch. Okay, so I'm going to very carefully pull my piece up. And I'm going to save that because I'm actually going to use that on the base behind our little box once this is folded together. And I didn't put it down before I glued the box together, and I would strongly suggest you do that. It makes it a lot easier. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to take, and I'm going to use score tape. So I have 3/8 inch score tape. I cannot talk this morning, I apologize. That I'm going to put on that 1/2 inch flap. Tab, that is, not flap, tab. And I'm going to tear that off and then burnish it down. And then I'm going to pull my backing off, the backing paper off of the score tape. And I'm going to lay this flat. So if you lay this flat and lay the tab out flat, what you're going to be able to do is just close the front of that card and burnish that down, and it's going to adhere perfectly where your card will close but pop open the way you want it to when you're done. So this is where I'm going to put this circle in. I should have done it beforehand, but I didn't think about it until after I'd already tacked that down. So I'm not going to make you watch me struggle with this, but I'm going to glue the circle in. Okay, so my circle is glued behind that, and I'm going to take my little honey drip, and I'm going to kind of lay it on here and figure out where I want it to go. And it turns out I didn't need to extend the little honey drip piece all the way across when I stamped it. I really just needed one impression of it. So I'm going to trim that off. And I'm going to just glue that down at the top of my card so that it's hanging down partway over that little circle window that we cut into our box card. So I'm lining it up actually with the top of the matting, because then it does drip down over the front of that window. Okay. So now I am going to take my cute little hanging bear, and he is going to go inside the window looking like he's hanging off of the little honey drip, because we don't want to cover up his cute little face, and if I put him up too far, then that's exactly what happens. So we're going to adhere him so that it looks like he's hanging from that little honey drip. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on his bottom half there, and I'm just going to tuck him in behind there, and I'm going to kind of hold it and line him up so that he's hanging where I want him to go. And then just reach up in there and kind of hold him in place for a second until he is glued down where I want him. Okay, so we've got our inside bear. So what we need to do now is mat the front of our card so that we can put our little sign bear on the front. So this is, the front of the card is 3.5 by 5.5. So I'm going to cut a mat that is 3.25 by 5.25. And I'm looking for my paper. There it is. This is the pattern I'm using from the Honeybees and Bears paper pack again. And I'm just going to trim that down. And I'm going to hang on to my little scrap pieces there, because I can always use those on other card fronts and things like that. Which is the nice thing about cards, is you really can use a lot of little bitty scraps. So I'm going to just go ahead and glue that down on the front of the card. And I'm kind of looking to see, because I think he needs something more to kind of make him stand out. And I have a blue circle that matches actually the blue in the little bee wings that I cut with a stitch circle die out of one of the other papers from that same paper pack. And I'm going to glue the little sign bear to that blue circle. But first I'm going to put this mat down. And again, you're going to have about 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So you're just going to center that panel on the front of your card. You can double mat that if you wanted to. If you were going to do that, then I would cut it just a little bit smaller, but I really didn't want a double mat. I didn't want to take away from what I had going on so far. So I'm going to glue that little bear down onto the circle, and then I'm going to use some foam dots to pop the circle up on the front of my card. All right, there we go. Here is our little box card. And I am going to go ahead and cut out a hexagon and ink blend on this. And I'm ink blending using English Mustard, Color Hive ink, and Hyde Park. Although I ended up getting the English Mustard dark enough that I really didn't need the accent from the Hyde Park, but I went ahead and did it a little bit anyway on the edges, just to kind of deepen that up a little bit. So we're going to get kind of around the edge with the Hyde Park, because the Hyde Park has like more of a greenish tint to it, and I thought it would just kind of complement and deepen this just a little bit. Okay, so now I am going to stamp this little bee. I don't know what you would call him, but he's kind of like flying. I don't know. There's a cute bee on the Take Care Teddy Bear set that I am going to stamp onto my hexagon very carefully. There we go. And then I have just a very small sentiment that says sending happy thoughts, that's actually from a Doodlebug stamp set that I have in my stash. Because I needed something small that just kind of fit, and that was what I found. I'm going to stamp that on the bottom, and then this is going to adhere in the bottom part of the card front, or the inside of the card there. So once I get that down, you could add another little panel on that left-hand side to write your message. You could sign underneath the little B hexagon that we just attached there. But at this point, we are done. Thank you for watching. I will link where to get the products that I used in the description below, but there is our finished box card. Thanks for watching.